We are here with Adrian Mack and Derek Bolin and myself, Dale DeRuiter.
Hi, Internet. Thanks for letting me take a break last week when we had, Jeff Porter fill in?
Yeah, Jeff Porter from...
I haven't listened to the episode because I only listen to shit that I'm involved with.
Derek, fucking just lie. Just lie and say you listen. Nobody will
Great episode. Jeff, really appreciate your help. And as Dale said, we are joined today by Adrian Mack, the Abominable, which, what do
he
we
is
want to
from a snow-covered...
Little from column A, little from column B.
Adrian, how you doing? Thanks for taking the time today.
You're welcome. I'm very well, thank you. Welcome both of you to my outdoor bar.
Yeah.
It looks very, I was asking Dale before we started, I was like, does he live on like a wilderness retreat? Like what is going on here? Why don't you tell us what you're up to?
I live in a forest. My wife and I decided 4 years ago that we were going to move to a forest.
How's the manifesto going?
Which one?
Which one?
The Unabomber got there first, and I don't think I can improve on his work.
You can, yeah, that's,
you're
that's
pretty
the
much
pinnacle
just,
of manifestos.
Yeah, you're just
he nailed it. But so we're out here in the forest, just trying to get by like the rest of you. We're a couple of honest folk with a bar.
Can we tell everybody where you are, or is this a secret?
Yeah, I'm on Salt Spring Island.
Oh, okay. So everybody here in Vancouver, I don't know about all our listeners across Canada and the world if they know what Salt Spring Island is, but it's basically it used to be like a haven for hippies to just go and live away from each other and live their own lives, and now it's kind of like
it still is, isn't it?
What's that?
No, not as much as you'd think. It's actually it's a little gentrified now.
Wait. It was full of hippies, and then it got gentrified.
Well, it was full of hippies and loggers.
Oh, loggers.
So it always had, it was a fairly polarized island, I think, for a long time.
I could imagine that loggers and hippies were kind of saw stuff from different
at odds with each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe they were at first. Of course, I wasn't around for that, but then I think they fell in love with each other in a way. I mean, there's a distinct culture here for sure. Let's not forget they ran all the indigenous people out of here first. Oh. Let's not forget that. But it was also a haven for Hollywood types for a while.
Oh, really?
So I don't know if you guys are probably too young to remember the Rockford Files.
I'm aware the Rockford Files existed.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not sure who the actor was. Was his name Rockford?
No, it's James Garner. Rockford would be the character he played.
Oh, yeah, that makes more sense.
But his sidekick in the show was a fella called Angel. Now, he was played by a fantastic character actor by the name of Stuart Margolin, who moved up here in the late 60s, just trying to get away from the hurly-burly of Hollywood, where I'll say again, he was a very successful character actor. And he would come up to Salt Spring Island, and now there's a road named after him.
Oh, cool.
And he was followed by, I was told recently, for instance, that at some point in the 90s, a yacht pulled up down in, I guess, Los Angeles. That's our downtown area. A yacht pulled up, and who should climb off but Lou Reed and Martin Scorsese and a bunch of their fucking rich friends from wherever, New York.
Yeah.
And apparently they put on a killer show down at the old Fulford Hall.
Oh, nice.
And so that kind of thing happens here. It's a
that
magical island.
That was the beginning of the end. That was when like celebrities wised up to this.
I don't know. I think the beginning of the end was more when global finance went into overdrive and Vancouver became a plaything of the mega rich, and a bunch of aspirant middle class people like my wife and myself decided to get the fuck out of there because the city was becoming unlivable.
So you're not writing a manifesto then?
That sounded like a good opening.
That sounded like a good opening sentence. The dedication page.
Yeah.
Dedicated to Vancouver.
It's been written and rewritten, and I don't want to bore you guys with this. Yeah. I gather you'd like to talk about the news.
Yeah, I'll save your manifesto for when it's finished, and I'll read it in its entirety. I want to get the
still around
of it.
One of my first targets is the Lougheed Mall. Just bear that in mind, son.
Oh,
I don't live anywhere near that.
The mega city of Lougheed now.
Where do you live, Derek?
Like 10 blocks from this guy. So same kind of area. The Burquitlam. I'm in like the only high rise in for miles and miles, and now they're trying.
Oh, so you're very visible.
Yeah, for now, and then they're starting to build up these megaliths around me. So I'm about to lose my status, which is unfortunate.
Oh, that's too bad. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
Move into a bigger building.
Yeah, your claim to fame.
Have either of you guys ever seen the movie Big Meat Eater?
No.
You know that film? Came out in the early 80s. Anyway, it was all shot in Burquitlam.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was it a high budget Hollywood flick?
No, it cost about $400, and it was made by Vancouver film students back in the late 70s. So it's one of the great foundational local Vancouver films. It was a sci-fi horror musical.
Oh wow!
And
that sounds right up your fucking alley, Dale.
Oh yeah,
that's
the horror sci-fi. Yes, the musical maybe not. Not a huge fan of the musicals, but on your recommendation, I'll watch it. Is there anywhere I can find? What was it?
Yeah, it just came out on Blu-ray. You don't like musicals? That's unusual for a welder.
The fuck is a Blu-ray? What?
You say what was it called? Heavy Meat Eater?
Sure. Big Meat Eater.
Oh,
Big Meat Eater. Now, if you can actually find a recent column that I wrote about this at, I don't want to mention the organization where it was published.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right.
But if you Google the title and my name, you'll see I did a little thing on it.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about what makes you such a good guest on our podcast? Because you have a professional opinion.
He's got name cachet, folks. Yeah. Especially in Vancouver. Do we want to talk about how you and I both know Adrian? Because at least for me personally, he gave me my first ever formal writing gig. At a rag called The Nerve magazine that I actually got introduced to through Dale. Fuck, how long ago was that? Like
14 years. 13.
Yeah, we were just talking about this. Dale was around at The Nerve when my wife Annie was pregnant with our first child, who will be 15 in August.
Jesus Christ.
And I have pictures of Dale and my wife when she was 9 months pregnant. And the funny part is you can barely tell them apart. Seriously.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Picked you to come on.
I remember. Well, Dale said to me one day, because you were like an intern. Did we pay you?
No, I didn't get paid. I was like the graphic.
Did you pay anyone? Because I don't think
I got paid.
All right.
Well, you were like the editor.
Like, yeah.
No, I was a music editor. Michael Mann was taking a small bursary as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure your viewers and listeners are familiar with his work. Do you remember a few years ago when people were printing, what was it? Fuck Michael Mann t-shirts? Do you remember that?
No.
I
didn't live
in it.
I moved back to Vancouver 6 years ago, so this might have been.
Oh, where did you go?
I went to Calgary.
Oh, why?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I got sick of Vancouver and I got sick of being poor. So I went to Calgary and then I got a graphic design job. And then when I got sick of that, I became a welder and then I moved back here. So I went to Calgary to be a graphic designer, which makes sense. And I came back here to be a welder, which makes even more sense.
Which also makes sense. Home of the trades, Vancouver, BC.
So yeah, let's throw Michael Mann under the bus and not give him a chance to stick up for himself and just talk about him for the whole podcast.
I don't think it's throwing him under the bus. I think as a one of nature's great provocateurs.
He did like that.
He would be happy to be commemorated in this way. But yeah, a few years ago, he wrote an article for a publication in Vancouver I prefer not to name, but had quite a readership at the time. And the article was an opinion piece about how indie bands should cease and desist from turning to crowdfunding as a source of finance.
I could see how many people in indie bands would take umbrage.
Umbrage with that?
Yeah, it caused quite the commotion. to the extent that people started printing and selling T-shirts that said "Fuck Michael Mann" on them. I think they were selling them out of the basement of the Waldorf.
Well, that's
and
funny.
it was quite a hot item for a while.
Now, I bet Michael Mann has multiple of those shirts, and
Yeah, I think he collected a few.
Yeah, he just has a closet full of them, and he wears a different one every day.
I remember Michael Mann when we all worked at the Nerve, and he wrote an article about the Abbotsford band "You Say Party, We Say Die," and he said something about, and it was two married couples. There was like two females and then two males, and it was like, what was that band, like ABBA or something? But they played indie music.
Yeah.
And he said something about them having sex with each other or something. And
yeah, what happened? Memory is a funny thing, Dale. We all remember things differently. But the feature was actually written by another fellow who was quite upset, because what happened was they provided a photograph of the band, and the two women in the band were punching each other out and covered in blood.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't real. It was all staged.
Yeah.
But they were covered in blood, and Michael did a cut line. That's the little caption under the photo.
Yeah.
That was, I don't remember what it was exactly, but I do remember that it was deeply offensive.
Oh wait, wasn't it? They were fighting. They were fighting over who got to have sex with the bass player.
I think it was something like that.
Yeah,
and we got a lot of hate mail. And,
yeah,
I mean that's an obvious joke, because nobody fucks the bass player ever. That's not something that happens.
Yeah, and then they ended up being like highly religious or something, and took.
Yeah, they were, and they're lovely people, and so this is in no way any of us here dumping on the good folks of You Say Party, We Say.
I don't want to dump on them, because I
heaven.
do enjoy their music. Are they still
they're really
around?
good.
Do you know?
No, I don't think they are. I mean, you know what happened. Of course, their drummer died on stage.
Literally died. Yeah,
that's
really
terrible.
harsh, and I think that really fucked a lot of people up.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it's hard to come back from that.
But where were we? They were good band.
Yeah, I like.
So we were talking about the Nerve. We got into Mac. You were right at home on this podcast, because we cannot avoid fucking tangents for the life of us. So we started talking about the Nerve.
I had some feedback recently, and people told me that they loved the tangents the most.
So we have big followings in the ADHD crowd. And then Mac went on to serve as, was it editor-in-chief of a unnamed Vancouver?
I was the movie section editor.
Okay.
For almost 10 years, and then I was laid off temporarily laid off.
For COVID, or was this before?
Yeah, as a matter of, so you've heard of this?
Yeah.
Sorry,
I've had to run it. Well, I haven't had a direct run-in with COVID, but I've seen it in the news.
Yeah. So I'm one of its biggest victims.
Okay, yeah. I'm okay with that. I
you have suffered more than anyone.
Adrian Mack, the most hard done by COVID-19.
So I don't like to. I'm not asking for sympathy. But
hey, do you want us to get you crowdfunded?
Yeah, let's do it. Maybe Michael Mann will write an article about you.
Yeah,
right.
Give us money to our Patreon, and we'll make sure Adrian Mack gets all of it. And we won't.
That would be great, because I do actually need one or two or a dozen more income streams right now. But yeah, anyway. So I was the movies section editor. It's a local Vancouver Arts and Entertainment Weekly, which was, it's kind of funny. Not really.
Are we not saying the name?
We're just not gonna say the name.
I don't know. Everybody fucking knows. I don't want to give them any. I don't know.
All right.
All right.
We'll sidestep it.
Here's the thing. They were bought. This was a Vancouver institution. Had been around for as long as me. I'll turn either 53 or 54 on my next birthday. I'm not entirely sure.
Whatever.
That year you lost.
Or was it?
Once you pass 45, why count? It's like that's 45, and then it's like,
That's the thing. It's really just how much longer will the prostate hold out?
Yeah.
they got purchased,
Yeah.
just before COVID came down,
Ooh,
which is
like,
got to be like the unluckiest buy in fucking history.
oh yeah, like
Buy
that's
a
got
newspaper, buy a newspaper right
Ooh.
before a global pandemic, and
Mhm.
so there's some irony to all of this, I suppose.
Well, actually, I just want to butt in here a sec.
They weren't bought by like Conrad Black or anything, were they? This is like
No, Conrad Black, does he mean anything anymore? I saw a tweet
I
today
remember
that
that guy
said
was
that
like,
Conrad.
Well, him and Post Media, they're like selling and buying from each other. So
yeah, that's it.
But Conrad Black will still put out an opinion once in a while.
yeah,
And then the world rises against him.
just to squash him down every time he dares show his ugly face. They're like, "Oh, that guy's still around. Let's get him." Yeah, should have just stayed in jail.
Anyway, that was a long-ass preamble into who the fuck Adrian Mack is. Mack, thank you for joining us. In case you didn't know, this is a current events podcast, so we're going to be talking about current events. I don't know if you get those on Salt Spring Island.
By the time they get here, they're a bit stale.
They're not current. Like,
but sure.
Have you heard about this pandemic? But I think
pandemic. I'm still thinking about Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh, yeah, I bet you love that now that you're.
I don't love it, but yeah,
you're a huge conspiracy guy, and you're actually one of the people I used to go to whenever I had any conspiracy questions or anything.
Let's dive into that.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
The current events shit.
Even though it's not current right now, I'd like to hear your professional opinion on it because you're not necessarily like a lawyer or anything, but you've researched a lot of conspiracies, so you would know when a blatant, like, just run us through it.
Well, I think from the right away, I got to say we're suffering from category error here. I'm not even sure what you mean by conspiracy theory. It's a debased and devalued term that is generally used to shut down dialogue.
Yeah.
So I try not to use it. However, you're right, Dale. There was a time when I delved, wholeheartedly into these things because I did want to know. I think it's better described as secret or occluded history. And
I like that.
If you want to talk about Epstein, it's not even occluded. It's all out there. The conspiracy part is, from my point of view, the way that it's reported. And I think it's been reported very poorly. And I don't think that's accidental. And I noticed that there's a Netflix show was just launched.
Did you watch any of that at all?
No, I haven't watched it. But here's what I suspect I'll see if I do watch it. I think it will not delve into his intelligence connections or the long-standing game that both the U.S. intelligence community and the Israeli intelligence community have been playing for decades, and really for a very long time, in blackmailing politicians and running control files on people, prominent public figures and so forth. And Epstein was just the latest in a long line of those types of people. So yeah, I mean, to watch, I mean, the fact that that you will still see people defending Bill Clinton or trying to minimize his role, the fact that this thing is so enormous that a fucking member of the British royal family was considered expendable. Like if they had, because inevitably when a scandal like this surfaces, somebody has to be thrown under the bus. And in this case, they chose Prince fucking Andrew to throw under the bus.
And you have to ask yourself,
who's being protected and what's being protected. So I think the Epstein thing should be, the scandal of the age, or the most recent scandal of the age, but it won't be. It will be the information that you receive about it will be largely controlled, very carefully controlled. So I don't think that makes me a conspiracy theorist. I just think that makes me a realist.
A realist?
And my project back then, Dale, was to just figure out, it was really about dividing the truth from the sort of the media noise. And my big obsession at the time was the Kennedy assassination. And it still is, to be honest. And I will always maintain and argue with people that if you understand what happened with Kennedy, then you can understand what's happening at any given time, and you can see to the bottom of any number of state crimes or scandals. That's what it was really about. And then on the other hand, I have to add that if you're reading QAnon and believing it, then you need to really think again. So there's this fake dialectic between the quote unquote conspiracy theorists on the right and the educated liberals in the middle, who tend to be a little smug in their
judgment of that, or
yeah, exactly, because I think those two sides deserve each other. They're both wrong. Well,
because there are almost like conspiracy, like if you look at using 9/11 as example, like there's tiers of conspiracy that are like, some are just like batshit insane and never believable in a million years, and then there's this like undercurrent where you're like, the U.S. intelligence community had advanced foreknowledge of this happening and permitted it to happen, to like have and to me that's the believable part of it, and then all this other shit that kind of got lumped in there. And you're referencing QAnon now as a good example of like, we've hit a point in our culture where people are so skeptical of mainstream media that they'll just like glom onto anything that presents itself as counter to that. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of these like honestly fucking like crazy conspiracy theories catching on with people.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. And I would further to that, I would my belief anyway is that a lot of those things actually are also cooked up by think tanks and intelligence agencies. I would not be remotely surprised to discover that QAnon, for instance, was coming out of some back room at the NSA or the CIA or any one of the other 18 intelligence agencies that the US currently employs. Or maybe it's a private intelligence agency. Who knows? But the idea that there's a controlled opposition has been around for a very long time, in the same way that there are agents provocateurs out there. It's in the interest of the state at all times to discredit anything that that might reveal their crimes. Right.
I want to just.
Sorry, I remember having an argument with a friend that I believe the 9/11 Truth Movement was an operation that was run out of some sort of intelligence community.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Because all it did was discredit what should be very obviously a cover-up. I mean, there's and now victims, families of the victims are trying to sue the Saudi government because so much of the financing, it has been revealed, came from Saudi Arabia.
Came directly from.
So already, here's my point, and then I'll let you speak, Dale.
Okay.
Here's
you
my
don't
point.
have to do that. Don't worry about letting Dale speak.
Don't listen to
Dale. He's at hundreds of episodes.
Don't listen to Dale.
Anybody who said 15 years ago there's a cover-up with 9/11 would have got shouted down, right? And the fact that the 9/11 Commission report deliberately excluded Saudi Arabia from that's just one of the things that it excised from its report. It tells you that, well, of course there was a cover-up. It's really just that simple. You were lied to about that. So you don't have to start talking. You don't have to be fucking stupid about it and say no plane hit the Pentagon. You just have to point out that the U.S. government lied about this thing, and we've been in a state of war ever since. That's all.
I just wanted to.
I'm done now.
I had a great segue that Dale's going to fuck up by saying something dumb. But go ahead.
This is the best segue from taking me being told I'm not allowed to call Adrian a conspiracy theory into current events. Is he mentioned agent provocateurs a little bit ago? And
you nailed it, Dale. You're doing
a lot of reports of said agent provocateurs in Minneapolis, where they're saying that white supremacists were either bust in or came in on their own, and even police officers who were the ones who actually started the looting and started burning stuff.
Do we want to do a little background on this first? George Floyd murdered by a cop.
Oh yeah. We should probably talk about the events that led up.
Kneeled on his neck for 9 minutes. I don't know if you guys have you watched, like, I watched the video. Dale, do you remember back in like the glory days of the internet where you would watch, like, it felt like you were watching one of those fucking beheading videos that we watched. Like, you were you were watching a man, and early on in the video, you know this man's going to die, and then you just like slowly watch him get weaker and weaker and the life drain out of him. And it was fucking awful to watch. So understandably, again, black man dying at the hand of a white police officer.
Black unarmed man
dating for the crime of, they thought he was writing a fraudulent check, which, as we all know, is punishable by the death sentence in any fucking country on earth. So definitely a logical response there.
Yeah.
And then not only, again, like the fucking white cop surprisingly terminated from his job immediately, as well as the other cops that were present. But then the fucking who was it? The district attorney.
The district attorney
idiot went on TV and basically made a statement like, he's like, well, I don't know if we're gonna charge him. We don't know if there's like actually a crime that's been committed here. And that just kicked off, like, so you have, hundreds of years of racial tension in the United States. You have, COVID-19 basically kicked our mental health in the fucking skull, and we're all on edge right now. And then this was just the one event that was needed to kick the whole tinderbox off. So I think we saw a lot of people going out, obviously peacefully protesting, and then all of a sudden you see white people showing up at these protests, causing some shit. And there's been a lot of documentation about how either they're cops trying to discredit I'm going to use this term loosely, but like the Black Lives Matter movement, or just black activism in general, or it's white nationalists or like far right 4chan dickheads who are doing this to just basically cause some shit, and probably with the same end result. Sorry for the long preamble. Gentlemen, talk about stuff. I'm going to go pee, but I'm still listening to you.
Okay. So I just wanted to say that when the police chief fired, I can't remember his name, Derek Chauvin or whatever. Chauvin, and the 3 other police officers involved, like immediately he just shit-canned them all, which is pretty unprecedented in a situation like this. Usually they open it up to like the basic internal affairs for the police department, and then they spend months investigating the whole thing, and then the officers are usually given like 2 months suspension without pay. But this time they were immediately, all 4 were fired, and then they brought in the FBI to do the investigation instead of having an in-house internal investigation, which to me was pretty crazy, because it's like that never happens. So,
well, I mean, that looks to me like optics.
Yeah.
And nothing more. I mean, the state will state, and pigs will pigs, and it's what they do. I mean, first of all, to assume that they're not sending provocateurs in to do this is insane. That's been the style for hundreds of years. And furthermore, asking the FBI to investigate is going to achieve nothing. It's just it'll change the color of the cover-up in some way. And yes, these cops were arrested, and of course they should be, but it doesn't really, again, it goes back to the thing, who can they afford to throw under the bus in this case? Well, they've got these fucking assassins working in this police force, like every cop station has. They all got their killers, and they all have their job to do, and they're expendable. The interesting thing about the interesting, tragic, and in some ways exciting thing about what's happening right now, I don't want to sound grandiose, but because there's riots all the time down the States, or sorry, there are protests all the time down in the States. But this one does feel somewhat different. I mean, to see people attacking the gates of the White House is something.
Yeah, that was pretty nuts how they all surrounded that.
Also, getting police officers to flee a precinct, and did they burn it to the ground? I didn't catch the. All I know is I saw the dramatic video of all the police fleeing the 3rd precinct in Minneapolis.
I thought it. Well, it burned. I don't know if it burned to the ground. I'm not sure of the extent of the damage, but when I went to bed last night, the last thing I saw was that CNN headquarters in Atlanta was being attacked. And I mean, just on a personal level, as someone with a deep contempt for media,
that was very satisfying for you.
Yeah, it was satisfying because honestly, I would say that in every way, CNN and MSNBC and what is perceived to be the quote unquote liberal media is every bit as damaging as a Donald Trump administration.
I'd agree with that.
Yep.
Yeah. So I was really hoping. I mean, I'm glad that nobody got killed at CNN headquarters, and I'm glad that it didn't turn violent. But I was also the symbolic gesture of ripping down that sign indicated to me that people are for a very long time. And to go back to what you were saying originally, Dale, the idea that the FBI is going to investigate this thing is fucking ludicrous. The FBI is an agency which is 100% committed to covering things up and always has been. It's about protecting the state. It's about protecting wealth. And it's an organ of oppression. It's an organ of continued imperialism at home and abroad. So fuck the FBI. And
well, I think
it'll be very interesting to see how this all plays out.
It's also to give the illusion of objectivity as well, right?
Yes,
like
exactly.
This shit's gonna play out the exact same. Like they'll probably trot this cop in front of a fucking useless grand jury of 12 white people who say, yes, it's totally understandable that you were afraid of this black man so much that you had to kneel on his windpipe for 9 minutes and kill him. Yeah. And they'll absolve them of any responsibility. But optically, that looks better if that comes down. If the FBI absolves them of responsibility, than the cops. Then another cop saying, this cop's okay. Like he's my pal. We find him not guilty. So I don't know. Like,
I feel like they're going to charge him. I feel like they're definitely going to charge Derek. Well, they've already charged him with 3rd-degree murder and manslaughter, and I think they'll for sure convict him as kind of like I don't know, like a whatever, like just like as an appeasement. Like, look, we got him. It's better. Like, we're not going to take this anymore. I think they kind of have to throw the book at him just to make an example of that.
But what's the good of making an example?
Well, they want to show, like I don't know who would be the ones who would make the show, but like the legal people, I guess you could say, want to make a show that they're not going to accept this sort of behavior from police officers anymore. And they want to show everybody who's protesting that they are willing to make changes. That would be the legal people.
That would be the public relations people.
But I'm not saying
the legal people aren't going to do anything.
I'm not saying they're actually going to do any of this stuff. I'm going to say they're going to charge this guy with 3rd-degree murder and manslaughter, which they should, because when he was kneeling on the guy's neck, the guy stopped moving, and then he held his knee on there for 2 extra minutes, which is above.
Doesn't that make it 1st-degree murder?
No, 1st-degree murder is you have to have pre-planned it
premeditated.
Yeah,
and it wasn't premeditated.
No.
Wow.
I mean, it was loose.
Maybe not that murder specifically.
He's like, I don't care who it is. I will. Yeah, like it's not like, like Derek said, that guy specifically. But what I mean, like, when I said the legal people, I mean like the American judicial system wants to look like they care about.
Yes, again, it's about optics, isn't it? So
it's definitely about optics.
Another miracle that I witnessed in the last 24 hours, speaking of CNN, was Cornel West being interviewed by Anderson Cooper. I guess it was yesterday. It was in the last 24 hours. And Cornel West, among many wonderful things, said the system cannot reform itself. And I think that's the thing that one has to keep in mind at all times, says the fucking smug middle-class white Canadian sitting up in his island retreat. I am by the way aware of
You're
this
self-aware at least, yeah.
as I speak. Well, you know, it's all very. I can sit here and fucking pontificate as much as I like. I'm not down there. But you know, I wish there were more Cornell Wests in Canada, and I've always felt that whatever happens in the States is only really 10 minutes ahead of what happens everywhere else. Out here in the civilized Western world. but the system is not going to reform itself. It's going to protect itself. It's psychopathic. It's got to go. And I don't know. Maybe this is a turning point.
Yeah. Okay. So
I think people are very aware of how COVID is being used by those in power to. I don't think COVID-19 was planned at all. However, the other side is really good at taking advantage of these sorts of situations.
Yeah,
and you can see that all over the place right now. You can see from the lowliest form of disaster capitalism to fucking $1 trillion bailouts for Wall Street.
Yeah,
it's all going on right now.
I mean, the thing that blows my mind is that I don't know how more people aren't looking at how the fucking stock market, like you look at the Dow Jones over this entire situation.
Yeah.
And how are we not angrier about that? Because a lot of people are making a lot of money when, like, how many people just lost their jobs in North America? Like,
oh yeah. You want to talk about looting?
Yeah, fucking exactly. Like, yeah.
No, the kind of the corporate crime that's happening right now, the crimes of the elites. I mean, it's unprecedented. The amount of wealth that's traveling upwards, and what happened to George Floyd, which happens every day in America, is appalling and heartbreaking. But as a triggering event, it did happen, and it's I don't know how to finish this sentiment.
Okay.
All we can do is sit back and watch.
I know how you feel not being able to finish sentences. That happens to me on this podcast. I don't know if anybody's picked up on that, but that's usually I just say I forgot a word and then steps in. I just also wanted to point out, like, while this was all happening, Trump, for whatever reason, couldn't stay off of Twitter and tweeted a couple things that I'm not going to say caused everything to go south, but didn't help stopping it from going south. And
sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, all I'm going to say is Trump is the logical conclusion to a 60 to 65 year experiment in encroaching corporate fascism.
Yeah,
so
that's a good way.
We should not be surprised by anything that's going on right now, up to and including his dumbass tweets.
Yeah, exactly.
It was always going to play out this way.
Yeah. I'm curious to get Mac's take on this because what Trump did is he sent a couple tweets about how mail-in ballots would contribute to, like, widespread fraud or something, and Twitter threw a fact check label on his tweet saying, there's no proof that this is linked to fraud or election fraud at all. But I want to get your take about how these social media platforms are kind of stepping in. And we had Jack Dorsey from Twitter and Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook kind of face off. And Zuckerberg made some bullshit statement about how social media platforms shouldn't be arbiters of truth. Whereas Jack Dorsey said, well, we have a responsibility if tons of people are coming to the site for news or whatever to correct these obvious falsehoods. Like, they're not saying what's true or not. They're reporting if something has been identified as false, particularly on the President of the United States tweets. What do you think about social media companies stepping into that role and responsibility? And do you trust them to do so?
I don't think they should do it, and I don't trust them.
I think
Shit, I was hoping for something punchier than that. Come on.
I don't
Roll
think
it back.
I don't think that they should be stepping in all willy-nilly. What I think should happen, which I'm surprised has taken this long before it happened, was social media should be treated like, for less of a better term, like a newspaper. Like the New York Times, if it were to tweet, or if it were to publish these tweets, like say in its back section, be like, oh, this is what people are writing, and then it just throws in all this like hate speech, written stuff, unfact check stuff, they get sued for libel. So I think we got to start treating like Twitter and Facebook as a publication company, where if they do post stuff that's hate speech or that isn't properly fact checked or anything, that they can actually be held liable by anybody who's kind of defamed by it or misled by it. And that's kind of, it's weird because Trump was all mad because his tweets got censored. And so he threw in that executive order, which I don't know if he's aware of what would happen if he took out Section 230 of that act. It would actually make it more plausible that all these companies would censor their tweets. So what do you guys think about that?
All I got to say to that is that the New York Times has also misled people very badly for a very long time.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know who we turn to as arbiters of truth besides ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have to rely on a decent public education system in order to turn out critical thinkers. And, you know,
that's the rub though, right? Like, I feel like, yeah, in a perfect world, we'd all be responsible for determining what is true or factual or valid, and we wouldn't have to rely on like every mass media company or social media platform or corporation. They all have their own, or politician. They all have an agenda, and that's going to taint how they identify or communicate what is true, what is not. But at some point in the last couple decades, the internet punched holes in our brains to the point where we're just not capable of determining fact from fiction anymore.
2015.
I see it playing out all the time. So I'm just like, I don't know what the solution is here, because I have people on my fucking Facebook feed telling me that, you know, Bill Gates is gonna fucking implant microchips in our skin from coronavirus vaccines, or that's fuck, I don't even know. What's some Alex Jones bullshit?
So see how already a false dialectic emerges from that, because the response for most reasonable people is to go, that's fucking crazy, and then to abandon any critical appreciation, which is the wrong word, for what Bill Gates has done. Bill Gates is a fucking crook. Bill Gates is not your friend. Bill Gates is not a virologist, and Bill Gates certainly should not be involved in anything to do with developing a vaccine for coronavirus. One only has to look at the work of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to know that they are not working. They're not on our side. He's a billionaire oligarch who, among other things, is interested in smashing teachers' unions and replacing the education system with something that suits him. And I don't want him around. And yet, here I am. I'm now going to be, people are screaming witch right now because I'm daring to say bad things about Bill Gates.
I don't think people are going to say that.
Yeah, but I'm not. Yeah, but I'm not. I'm also, you know, again, it's not. This is not QAnon bullshit. It's like fucking know your enemy. Bill Gates is your enemy. You know, Google is your enemy. Facebook's your enemy. It's that simple. Know these things. Go and do some fucking reading, folks. I look, me as much as anyone. And I don't know, fucking throw your phone away. Jesus Christ! It seems pretty simple to me. And like your position here, Derek, that our brains have been scrambled. I think we need to be a little more, a little kinder about each other, or at least we should have a bit more respect for each other's intelligence.
Yeah, Derek, we should definitely have more appreciation of each other's smartness.
Shut up!
You're the dumbest person on the
No, it's like the whole, you know, you want to talk conspiracy theory. The dumbest fucking conspiracy theory of the last 3 years is Russiagate.
Oh,
unquestionably the dumbest fucking theory out there. And who's been pushing it? CNN, MSNBC, and the fucking Democrats. They love that. And educated fucking liberals, centrists, you know. So, I fucking lost my train of thought again. But
well, I want to know. So why is that dumb? Because it's just like
I remembered my point.
Happened, or because it's like it's so obvious that fucking like countries are always fucking meddling in other countries' elections. Like,
it's dumb because it was designed entirely to shift blame away from the deeply corrupt Hillary Clinton campaign, to shift blame away from that. They're trying to explain why Trump happened. In the meantime, you know, there are elements within the empire which would really like a new Cold War with Russia, because they're fucking mental cases, all of them. You know, they've got their Cold War with China already going on, and they want another one. And it you know, it captivates people. It gives them something to talk about. It's been astonishing to me to see so many educated people who I love, my friends, becoming fucking neo-McCarthyites because the New York Times insists that a fucking couple of Facebook ads actually swung the US election. That is insane on its face. But the point I was originally trying to make was this. There's an assumption behind this stupid theory that people are too dumb to know what they're reading. And I disagree. I think actually lots of people know what they're fucking reading. And I think that's why lots of people converged on CNN last night to tear down that sign, because they know they're being lied to. And I think we have to give folks more credit, except for the ones that I've just been bitching about.
Okay, so how
yeah,
how do we temper that? Because there's the you keep using a term that escapes me right now, but there's like these wide extremist swings of like things like Bill Gates is bad, which is like, that's rational, that's
this horrible binary universe we live
then
in.
there's the Bill Gates wants to microchip you and track your every movement. He's doing so through a coronavirus vaccine.
Right.
How do we get more people into that area where they are critical, but not so critical that they just start like watching InfoWars and believing all this like the craziest imaginable shit? What's another David Icke?
David Icke.
David Icke.
Yeah, I've been seeing his fucking name bandied about lately, and it's like, didn't that guy believe that we were like
lizard people?
Literal lizard people.
Yeah.
Which is like, and I don't know if that's a metaphor for something, because I've never
It's not a metaphor. He believes people turn into lizards.
Well, no, I think there's some debate about that. It could be a metaphor for Jews.
All right.
Yeah. Just fucking derailed everything.
But I mean, traditionally, you know, when conspiracy theory as such started to take hold, say in the 60s and 70s, there was a sort of particularly virulent strain that was subtextually very anti-Semitic. Or sometimes it wasn't even subtextual. And so I think some would say that David Icke sort of just developed that particular flower into something else. So the Jews became the lizards, and you know, I mean, if you're insane, there's a certain logic to it, I suppose. But you know,
not digging into that one.
Well, there's no logic to it at all. It's horrible. But here's the thing, you know, and I don't want to repeat myself, but you know, David Icke is awful, and Alex Jones is really awful. And in both cases, they have made statements or they've pursued ideas or stories that have some truth in them. And those stories are now untouchable. They've been toxified by these, whatever, I don't know, these fuckers. they've wrecked it. And I'm going to wind way back to the beginning and say, like, for instance, you know, if you were to just type in JFK assassination into Google, one of the first returns you might get is some batshit stupid Alex Jones theory about how LBJ did it. You know, that's really, I believe, their function. I believe that's why they have either been allowed to survive and even thrive, or in some cases they've even been employed or used as assets, or otherwise harnessed certainly by U.S. intelligence agencies, who are in the fucking game of disinforming people, because a disinformed population is, rendered useless.
Mm-hmm.
So I would fold Google and Facebook and Twitter and all of these other platforms that we're all addicted to. I would fold that into the program. And again, they might be unwitting in their help, but certainly they're being used, and certainly on some level, even if it's just in terms of profit, they're in cahoots with the worst element inside world. The U.S. government, definitely. And certainly the UK government, anybody else involved in the Five Eyes network, whoever, like, they're all insane. But anyway,
wait, sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but the Five Eyes network, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, what is that? It's UK, Australia, America, Canada. I don't know. It's a big global surveillance apparatus. Now, if I go into this, I'm going to start sounding like Alex Jones. And I don't want to. I despise that.
Want to put you on the spot. I'm just saying.
Yeah, well,
I'm just saying that I don't think any of if I don't know this and I'm a dabbler in this sort of thing, I doubt any of our listeners are going to know what the Five Eyes network is. Intelligence
organizations in the West cooperate and share intelligence, and Five Eyes is one of the programs that we know about that does exactly that.
Okay.
And anything that actually makes it into the public sphere is 10% of what's really going on. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
I mean, look
up Five Eyes. It's horrifying. So we have GCHQ in the UK. You have the NSA in the States. You have whatever it is in Australia. New Zealand is also involved, which breaks my heart because I really have a lot of respect for New Zealand. But,
I think New Zealand to Australia is the way everybody views Canada to the USA.
Canada to
like,
Australia is America, right?
Yeah, you think of anything bad coming from that area of the world, you're like, oh, it's all Australia. New Zealand hasn't done anything. They are so innocent. And you just think of like these cute little sheep herders in these like coastal mountains and forests, and you're like, they would never do anything bad.
I don't know. They produced the Hobbit trilogy.
Yeah,
I was gonna say
Peter J. Yeah, but they also produced
Concords, though.
the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
They did that too.
Yeah,
that's what it all balances out.
Yeah. And,
anyway,
okay, sorry.
Can I get another beer?
Yeah, go get a beer.
Yeah,
you're in your bar.
We're in intermission. Dale and I are just going to shit talk you while you're gone, and then you'll come back and you'll never know. All right.
Pull your plugs out.
This is awkward. Hey, Dale. What's up, man?
Man, it's like having an adult on the podcast.
It's
like
fucking weird.
Every time I try to say something unintelligent, he's like, actually, no, this is why you're wrong.
Here's why you're dumb as fuck.
Yeah, usually I'm just used to you saying that, and it's like, well, it doesn't matter because Derek's also dumb.
New rule for podcast guests, they have to baseline be dumber than you and I are.
Yeah, I would say they have to always not make us look dumb, and basically what you just said. Perfect.
Like, let's exclusively get toddlers and maybe like first graders. I'm sure Noah would come on.
Oh man, we should have this exact podcast with all these exact subjects with Noah talking about it.
With a 6-year-old kid, because then he'll make us look smarter. Oh, Adrian, you're back. What's up?
Hey, what's up?
Were you guys talking about my bald spot?
No, I'm definitely in a place to talk about that.
We were just saying, so far you've proven to be too smart, and in the future we're only going to have people who are dumber than us because we don't like being put on the spot.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
you're both the funniest guys on Twitter.
Oh,
first of all,
I'll take that. I'm not even going to research it. You are the funniest people on Twitter.
and believe me, I'm an idiot. I just have strong opinions. But
but you sell them well. I think that's the big thing. Like, you speak with conviction. It doesn't matter what you're saying.
I mean, I want to buy snake oil from you right now. I don't even care what's in it.
I have a very simple project. My simple project is that I really resent being lied to.
Yeah.
And it's really, for me, it's been many, many years of weeding through what I think is real and not real. And I think we're all doing that, but I've been doing it longer.
So for our listeners and anybody out there, what's a good source people can go to find, like, because everybody's like, oh, you got to find news that's not lying to you.
Infowars.com.
Nobody ever tells you what that news
man.
source is. So what is, you don't even have to tell people where they should go. Just tell us, what is a site or a newspaper or whatever that you go to that you trust?
Who do you trust?
Yeah.
I don't, where do I go? There's a lot of things. I like TruthDig. I think that's real good. I know I'm not going to throw website names at you. I think, a journalist like Chris Hedges is somebody you can trust. How about that? I think anybody who has not been touched by corporate money generally can be trusted. I think Max Blumenthal is great. I think, I don't know, we're talking a lot about American stuff, but I guess that's,
if
they're
you want to bring
leading
up
the
some
world.
Canadian
And
guys too.
yeah, I don't. Canadian media bores the shit out of me. How about you guys?
Well, there's not that much going on up here. Canada's so boring. We just tune into the States to get all of our fire on. Right now, what's trending in Canada is everybody brought up Trudeau wearing blackface again because they're like, what, you think you're racist in the States? We got some racism up here. Remember that thing we were talking about a year ago that we mostly got over? They're like, they try to bring that up again.
Amusing aside here, my son has a stuffed hedgehog, and I was putting him to bed the other night, and he showed me the hedgehog, and he had colored the face on it black, and this was like immediately after like all these race protests were going on in the States.
So did you cancel your son?
Yeah, I was like, this is a very problematic time to be doing this. What's wrong with you? And I rehomed him. He doesn't live here anymore. So
right.
But did he tell you why he did it, or was he just?
No, it was just boring. He thought it was funny. Like it wasn't actually a race thing. To him, it's just like a kid coloring a hedgehog's face black. I don't think there was any like malicious intent behind it. But don't let the news media get it. No, fuck. Dale, edit this out when you edit the podcast.
I definitely will. I will edit the part where Derek sounds worse than Dale right out of there. Yeah. But I get what you're saying.
There was apparently this news story in Toronto of police throwing a black woman off of an apartment complex balcony. Did you guys hear about this?
What?
Yeah, I saw. I saw a thing.
When did that happen?
I don't know what to make of it. It was what 2 days ago, I think. Yeah, I'd be very wary of wading into this. I don't know enough about it.
I haven't read anything on it, so like always, my opinion is going to be very uneducated on the subject. Are they sure she didn't like rush and fall off the balcony?
Well, no, official story is that she jumped to her death or fell to her death, but they are saying, I'm just reading a news story here, but 29-year-old was in the midst of a mental health crisis. Police were called to the apartment, and then she was asked to enter her apartment and followed in by several officers. She called out for help from her mother and then fell to her death, is the official story. So
that's so already highly suspicious, I'd say.
Yeah, I'm not saying she just jumped on her own free will or anything. And it is weird that she called out for her mother. And I don't know. It's hard to parse what actually happened here. So, like, I don't want to.
I'd like to know how a bunch of cops couldn't prevent a person from leaping.
Yeah, 7 officers and a 29-year-old woman.
And they they couldn't. She overpowered them all and leapt to her death. Eh? I mean, so here's where my the reactive part of me kicks in, and I assume, sadly, that cops kill people all the fucking time.
Yeah,
that's. If it was to emerge that she had for whatever reason been chucked, or there was some sort of altercation that led to her death, Would I be surprised? Not remotely.
You would not be terribly shocked by that. Yeah.
No, of course not. So my immediate, I don't know enough about it, so I feel weird talking about it. It sounds fucking, it's horrible already.
We should have just not brought it up at all.
But anyway, 7 cops and one dead black person. Interesting.
Yeah, it is
and
suspicious.
It's suicide. I mean, so there's at a certain point, this is kind of related, but at a certain point, you get into this weird gray area where you can sort of demand too much, quote unquote, proof of something. At a certain point, I think it's fine to kind of go with your intuition on things. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that media is really good at is forcing you to question your intuition. And as I've gotten older and have wrestled with the question of why successive governments in my lifetime, I grew up under the Thatcher regime in the UK in the 80s. So I saw what a really an extremist can do to a country. It was fucking horrifying. And as I've gotten older and I've seen things get worse and worse, they never get better. They just get worse. And I have children too, Derek, as I said. I've got a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old. Should be 15 in a couple of months. I'm looking for metaphysical answers to this question. I've stopped being an atheist.
Oh, really?
Yes.
This is
absolutely.
Actually quite a surprise to me. So do you believe
it's kind of a political sense because I find, especially with the new atheist movement sort of got fired up a few years back.
Yeah.
With fucking Dawkins and Sam Harris and all those other morons. Although smug, self-satisfied, well-educated morons. I got really tired with their arrogance and felt that they were attacking good people who were simply looking for a decent, an easy to understand moral and ethical framework by which to live their lives. And if you need to fucking have a god for that, great, go for it. I mean, why would we stand in their way, and why would we shout them down or humiliate them? And that those thoughts eventually turned to my own sort of questions about that sort of thing. I do think the universe is magic. I do think that whatever dimension we exist in is impoverished, and we in the sense that we're surrounded all the time by miracles. We're surrounded by all sorts of things we can't explain, and science fails miserably in trying to explain them and offers us sort of 19th century materialist solutions that don't really work. And I'm not, that doesn't make me anti-science, but it certainly makes me anti-scientist. If not scientist, but the scientism, the religion of science bothers me. Yeah. And this is all, to me, in my mind, appended to sort of the sort of centrist, liberal, educated world that we all inhabit, where a lot of people think they're smarter than those dumb fuckers down in the States carrying guns, but we're not. We're not. Yeah. We're luckier, and we've been just as conditioned and programmed as they have, maybe in a different direction. But we're still victims of some sort of program.
So I just wanted to clear up one thing. Sorry, Adrian was saying he's not atheist. Are you more of an agnostic, or are you prescribing to any? I believe the universe is magic. Okay. That's all I'm saying.
That's a great ass belief, and I like it because it's a little more optimistic than, everything else. So there's a level of optimism in there you definitely don't see in science that you don't see in a lot of organized religions.
I think I don't want to beat up on science because I love science and science is really important, and I appreciate that I'm still around because of science in a lot of ways. No, I'm more talking about the sort of general ideology behind it, which would view, say, the universe as an expanse of dead matter that has no meaning outside of its quantifiability, in terms of electrons and protons, and we just keep getting in quarks, and we keep getting smaller and smaller, and we have to measure everything based on some 19th century idea about how the universe works, which is not how the universe works, clearly, and it's an old idea. say the same thing about politics, by the way. We're attacking modern problems with 19th century politics, and they're not relevant anymore. It's like asking a fucking locomotive engineer to critique a Concorde. It's a bad example because the Concorde's dead.
Yeah, they kind of quit using those a while ago.
That was,
Kept blowing up.
when you were
you get
on
my
Salt
point.
Spring Island, they retired the Concorde.
Since you moved out of Vancouver.
People are not using the Concorde these days.
Yeah.
Do you think that democracy, as it currently exists, do you think that is a political institution that will because it's not it's
You don't?
somebody has cracked the fucking code, and I think it died maybe 5 or 6 elections ago.
What democracy?
Yeah.
Listen,
I thought you were
again,
gonna ask.
The illusion.
listen.
I thought you were going to ask. Oh, yeah.
Speaking as a privileged white Canadian who's still hanging in by his fucking bloody fingernails, still hanging in to the middle class.
Yeah.
No, there's no fucking democracy. Are you kidding? It's a corporate government. Our government is corporate. You might like Justin, whatever. It's fine.
We're not.
I don't like any of them.
Here.
They're all
We're not big
bots.
fans here on Irish Factory.
So this is where that whole thing about intuition comes in. Now I'm just sounding like Archie Bunker. But for fuck's sake, how much more do you need? How much more proof do you need that a good guy? I don't want to get into this because we're very lucky up here.
Damn it.
We're very lucky.
Yeah, we
up
are.
here.
I think our thing is that we're comparatively lucky.
Yeah.
Because all you have to do is look at the US. But I think in a lot of ways that Canadian leaders traditionally just kind of get a free fucking pass because it's always it's not as bad as the guy in the States, and that's it. And we don't do the shit that they do in the States. And racism in Canada, racism in Canada isn't as bad as it is in the States. So we don't have racism here. And it's we really believe our own bullshit a lot of the time because
We really do.
we're focused on the US so much of the time, and
Yeah.
comparatively things never seem as bad here.
That's a very good point, actually. It's something worth exploring, how, America really provides us all with a focus and a punching bag, so that we're not examining our own shit.
Yeah, it's always like you better not talk out because dad's going to make your life as bad as it is for those guys in the States, so just take what you have here. And so far, I'd say we're pretty lucky because there's never been anything egregious that the Canadian government has tried to do to us just because it would be
Except for residential schools. But let's put that aside.
Okay. Prove me wrong
He
again.
meant us as white people, Adrian.
We're good.
I meant us as in lately, in the last couple decades. It's just kind of been Canada has.
I don't know, man. I don't. Sorry, I interrupted you again.
No, go ahead.
Well, I'm not happy that my tax dollars paid for peacekeeping in Afghanistan. I didn't fucking vote for that.
All right, that's a good point.
Not really happy with what's the price tag on that pipeline now? It's fucking $8 billion. What is it?
What that they paid?
More than they originally said. That's for sure.
Oh.
Yeah. I describe those things. Yeah,
All
maybe I'm getting carried away, but I'd call them egregious.
Well, I mean, more than I was just going to say our basic day-to-day freedoms.
Yeah.
That.
Yes.
In the States, it seems like they're always trying to claw away from everybody. But up here, it's a lot of them, free speech and stuff, we never had to begin with. We had, our rights and freedoms are a lot different than the States. But they haven't been for your own security, we're going to take these all away. Up here, it's more all through taxes. The way the government takes advantage of all Canadians is we're just going to take a little bit more of your cheese. Don't worry about it. It's for your own good. They're not we're taking away your right to do this. Do you know what I mean?
Do you feel more free here, though? Do you feel we have more personal freedoms than they do in the U.S.? I'm asking that's a question I'm posing to both of you.
I feel like we have more personal freedoms, good and bad. We have more freedom to get sick and die because they don't have institutionalized healthcare, but they also have an actual free speech. As much as it's coming into question right now, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms doesn't actually have that built into it. it's very similar, but it doesn't go to the extent as they do down there. I feel like, in general, to be just like a middle of the road Canadian, you have more freedom. But if you are super rich in the States, then you have way more freedom down there.
Oh, well, that's the key thing, though. I mean, you know, in this world, money is freedom.
Yeah.
So I'll put it this way. I feel that my freedom is diminishing rapidly right now. And I'm not sure how I'm going to get that freedom back.
That's a good point.
You know, we should also add that, you know, if any of us was living on a reserve in northern Alberta,
we would be having a much different conversation for
yeah.
sure. Or even like, living on the down, like it is, that's a great point. Like it is very much like economic freedom is freedom. And we do see this widening erosion between, and
so what are we actually talking about? What are we talking about when we say freedom? We're actually talking about, you know, how's your bank account? That's pretty much what it comes down to. And so therefore it's a system that I really am more and more inclined to want to separate myself from, but it's impossible. It's a trap.
Oh, we could all just move to one of the Gulf Islands.
No, you can't. You see,
our phones in the ocean.
You can't though, because I still have, you know, I still gotta, like, my well broke the other day. My well pump.
Yeah.
I had to pay an electrician to come and fix it because I haven't quite figured out yet how to fix a well pump.
Oh, don't worry, I don't know how to fix one either.
If my septic system goes wrong, well,
yeah.
Fuck. What am I gonna do?
I don't know.
Get
Go back
in there
to
with my bare hands? No.
Come back to us, Adrian.
Go back to the good old days. Just shit in the woods, man.
Yeah, come back.
You're on an island.
Come back to the city. There's plenty of room. We have septic tanks here, and you don't even need a well here. We'll just give you water out of a tap.
Did you?
Go ahead, Adrian.
No, I was going to ask if do you guys have another topic that you need me to
I was actually thinking we should probably wrap it up quick.
Yeah, we've been running for an hour. We can. Your beer's looking a little low, so
we're an hour.
Definitely low now.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, Adrian, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Adrian Mack, formerly of the Nerve magazine and
other media organs,
will remain unnamed.
A weekly entertainment.
Are you active on the internet? Do you have like a social media profile?
I try not to be, but I do have a Twitter. So you can find me at fucking Adrian Mack. I don't know. And the other thing I should mention is that I have a podcast of my own.
You do?
Yeah, it's new, and it's something that I've been putting together with Brad Damsgaard, who is the former publisher and editor of the Nerve magazine, who also moved out to Salt Spring Island. And we have a thing called The Escapists, which you can find at www.escapists.ca.
Nice.
And it's a podcast about leaving the city and figuring out how to have a fucking well and a septic tank in your in your rural compound.
Yeah,
that's what we talk about.
Oh, that's
not very good, but
very cool.
Know.
Oh yeah, you're both pretty intelligent and engaging guys. So that's based on the advice you've given us. As we're all going to flee to these remote islands and rural communities, I'm going to make this my step-by-step guide for doing.
Yeah, that's what it's for. It's for people like you, Derek. People who feel like they're ready to let it all go.
Perfect, man. Well, thanks again so much. Hey, listeners, thanks for tuning in to this episode. As always, I've been your co-host, Derek Bolin. You can follow me on the Twitter machine at Herder.
I've been your other co-host, Dale DeRuiter. You can find me on the Twitter machine at SuperDalebot. Adrian, you fucking
gave it, Dale.
I've been your guest host, Adrian Mack, and you can find me on Twitter, but I don't know why you would.
Touche. We're on Facebook. Facebook.com/OutrageFactPod, Twitter.com/OutrageFactPod. Wherever you get your podcasts, please rate, review, and subscribe to us. And if you really like us, head on over to Patreon and throw us some money, and we will donate to the Adrian Mack Septic Relief Fund. And until next week,
stay angry.